Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk in the Store Commerce Migration Series. Today's topic is Dynamics 365 Commerce Migration Strategy. My name is Tim, and I will be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you are agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the TechTalks Community Dynamics page within the coming weeks. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout the session and in a live Q&A segment at the end of the presentation. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Srinath Sundaresan, Senior R&D Solution Architect, and Rob Bertram, Principal R&D Solutions Architect. Rob, over to you to get us started.
Welcome, everyone. This is the first Tech Talk in a three-part series on migrating to the Store Commerce app. I am Rob, and I'm joined by my fellow colleague, Srinath. Whether you're watching us live or on a recording, we thank you for including us in your migration journey. As I mentioned, this is a three-part series with part 2 broadcasting in 2 days, Thursday, December 1st, and part 3 on Wednesday, January 4th. If you find this recording valuable, I encourage you to register for the next 2 parts. As a reminder, we build on top of our existing work and aim to deliver new content in Tech Talks. There is a lot of collective wisdom in past Tech Talks, as well as the Dynamics 365 implementation guide. If you have not done so, I encourage you to read the guide, as there are many repeatable patterns that we reference in this series. To keep things interesting, I wanted to start with a little math puzzle. Rob is an engineer and hobbyist runner. He likes to track his progress and use data to understand his development path. He is training for his next marathon and focusing on handling the most difficult part of the journey, Heartbreak Hill. The hill is 1 kilometer to the top and another kilometer back down. Yesterday, Rob was able to complete the full 2-kilometer stretch, averaging 12 kilometers per hour. Today, Rob reached the summit averaging 6 kilometers per hour. Question: how fast does Rob need to run in order to average 12 kilometers per hour across the full 2-kilometer stretch? Please post your answers in chat, and we will reveal the answer at the end of the Tech Talk. On to our main topic. The Store Commerce app is more than just a rebranding of the modern point-of-sale application for Dynamics 365 Commerce. It is an evolution of technology, and there are several long-awaited framework improvements that are improvement to the quality of life for many retail IT workers. At the end of this Tech Talk, you will be armed with information around the benefits of migrating so that you can A, generate excitement, B, secure executive sponsorship, and C, begin your migration journey. Whenever we have a new technology, we always need to answer the age-old questions. Why change? And if what we have is working, why fix it? The Store Commerce app is more than a simple rebranding or a name change for the point of sale for Dynamics 365 Commerce. It is a completely new solution that was developed based on our learnings from the now legacy modern point of sale application. For starters, we abandoned the .NET 4.6 framework and adopted the new .NET 6. And we now natively support major operating systems like iOS and Android that are popular on iOS and Android devices. Due to these changes, we need to abandon the retail SDK used for extensibility and adopt a new SDK called the Commerce SDK. Let's dive into some of the major benefits of the Commerce SDK. If you were in an elevator for 43 seconds with your CIO and they asked you to explain why the Commerce SDK is important, what would you say? Here are my top picks. It addresses some of the major pain points that have been in the prior generations of POS applications. First, a modern development experience. Most extensions can now be built using Visual Studio Code, which is free. And many developers have worked on this either in school or as a hobby and come very prepared and understanding that tool. We also have templates using Git repositories for code management. And last but not least, in terms of modern development experience, we have templates for build automation. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have a lot of templates available for you to get started quickly. We also have efficient updates. Microsoft platform updates are available through NuGet public feeds and will be fetched on build. This is a major improvement over the pattern before. Extensibility management, your customizations are now separate from the base Microsoft pieces of the point of sale. We will have a slide on this later, but this means that you no longer need to recompile your customizations every time there's a POS hotfix or a new service update to deploy. And most importantly, enterprise manageability. The modern installer works with all enterprise management tools like Service Center and Intune. For those of us familiar with the legacy way of doing things, let's compare the Commerce SDK to the Retail SDK. There's a lot of information on this slide. I'm not going to read it all to you. You can download the slide from the session afterwards. So I'll give you the highlights and let you pull the details on your own. From an extensibility perspective, as I mentioned, Commerce SDK uses NuGet feeds. And that allows you to basically get the latest updates every time you build. Whereas with the Retail SDK, you actually had to go to Lifecycle Services and download that Retail SDK package, and then unzip it and then migrate your code into that SDK folder structure. It was a fairly invasive effort, and this way, you with the Commerce SDK, you have much more ready access to the information and coding updates. Additionally, the samples are now in a separate repository, so you can pull in samples and look at ways of doing new coding patterns, whereas the Retail SDK had the samples embedded within the folder structure. And if you needed to look at a new sample, you would have to download an entirely new SDK and remerge your code. Similarly, deployable packages have a great change in them. So the installers are now independent, meaning that the Microsoft portion, the ISV portions are now separate installers. This means that whenever you have an update, you don't need to remerge your code with the Microsoft assemblies, and you also don't need to remerge your code with maybe an ISV update. From an IT and enterprise manageability perspective, this is a huge improvement. Although this does mean you have multiple installers to deal with, your update process is much more streamlined and much more manageable. As I mentioned, the Seal installer is a highly needed new feature. The installers for the core application, the Microsoft components, are now separate from your extensions and can also be separate from your ISV solution. That perhaps is maybe a negotiation between you and your ISV provider if they're providing you a customized version. But ISV solutions off the shelf can be installed independently and published independently, and that makes your deployment process much easier to do and much easier to manage. One really good example of how this process changed is visualized in this flowchart. You can see that the Retail SDK has a lot of different steps that have been eliminated with the Commerce SDK installer pattern. And not only that, I've highlighted some highly labor-intensive activities in this update process, so that every time you have a quality update or a service update, you would have to do this with the Retail SDK. You no longer have to do this with the Commerce SDK. Another major benefit is what we call CSU Core. With your Cloud Scale unit running the new Commerce SDK using the .NET 6.0 and ASP.NET Core 3.1 runtime, you get much more streamlined performance on the CSU. It's up to 30 to 40% faster in a lot of different scenarios, as well as you get much better telemetry and reporting from it. So it's better all up. It's newer technology. As I mentioned, .NET 4.6 was released in 2015, and you're now using much more modern and up-to-date technology. At a high level, store commerce is a next generation of the commerce point of sale. It unifies all of the components of what we had with the point of sale in the past, whether it be modern point of sale, cloud point of sale, or a hybrid that supported iOS and Android. It's now all underneath one single technology and one single extensibility platform. Some highlights of the benefits, if you're again going through your elevator pitch, is that your performance is up to 2 times faster in many scenarios. The independent deployment model allows you to have a much better enterprise manageability pattern, and this allows you to streamline your deployments as well as take updates much more frequently. Last but not least, it is on the latest technology. It uses now our WebView 2 Edge controller, which renders the point of sale visuals much faster and is much more noticeable. With the change of store commerce, like I said, it's not just a name change, it's a technology change. But to make the conversation much easier to understand, we are unifying many of the different names. So whether we had a modern point of sale or a cloud point of sale that we affectionately called MPOS and CPOS, everything now is really going to be under the same store commerce. And really we're just going to modify it with how it is used. So store commerce for Windows, for example, is going to replace modern point of sale. Store commerce for web is going to replace cloud point of sale. And store commerce for Android and store commerce for iOS are going to replace our hybrid POS builds. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Srinath, who's going to talk about our timelines. Srinath, over to you.
Thanks, Rob. Let me share the screen. So let's talk about the timelines. This is the timeline in terms of overall store commerce release plan. We have made some revisions or updates to the dates that were published in the white paper earlier. There are some key takeaways from this slide. Retail SDK will be deprecated next year, so all customers must migrate to the new Commerce SDK by October 2023. So after October 2023, the Retail SDK will no longer be released or supported. The last version that will be released with the Retail SDK is 10.35. With the Commerce SDK, you will be moving to the sealed installer and independent packaging model. The old way of where you had to generate retail deployable packages cannot be used anymore. So also, deployable packages generated using the Retail SDK MS build is deprecated. The modern point of sale MPOS application is deprecated in the Commerce version 10.25 release and is replaced with the Store Commerce app. We have added the support for dual display, and also pricing SDK customizations are also supported now. So there is a difference in terms of hardware peripherals. In the Store Commerce app does not support UWP peripherals that are point of service devices. So if you are currently using a USB scanner or magnetic stripe reader in plug and play mode, you will not be you will need to install OPOS drivers and configure these devices in your hardware profile so they work with the Store Commerce app. The mobile store here is also important. Just like the Store Commerce app for Windows, we have the new Store Commerce app for Android and iOS. Overall, it has the same feature capability, but it is based on different rendering engine. There is some big improvements. One is the native hardware integration on Android and iOS. In the past, the hardware story has been slightly different between Android versus iOS, and for Android, we only had hardware integration for payments and printers. Moving forward with the Store Commerce app, We have hardware integration for payments, printers, barcode scanners, both for Android and iOS app. Another huge advantage with Store Commerce app for Android and iOS is that the app is going to be published in the iOS App Store and the Google Play Store. So in the past, if the MPOS was needed on Android or iOS, you must download the bits, build and create a package. So moving forward, you don't have to do anything. You can download the app available in the App Store or Play Store, and it should be automatically be updating on a regular basis. Another area of investment will be hardware station extensibility for iOS and Android. This will be primarily for payment integrations to enable different payment options. So the key takeaway here is that the Store Commerce app is now available, and the localization support has been released for the top market. So any customer who wants to take advantage of the app can install it. There are plans to extend localization support to further countries and markets. In the second or third tech talk of the series, we will show multiple demos on the Store Commerce app. We will go through dev experience, setting up build pipelines for CI/CD, code signing using the Azure signing tool. Also look at ISV package management with NuGet feeds. Here is the list of localizations that have been released. Earlier, many commerce localization features were delivered as part of the out-of-the-box product. So, but they had to be enabled via extension configuration files for corresponding commerce components. This required additional configuration steps. Some end-to-end localization solutions, such as various fiscalization samples, were included in the retail SDK and were required to be packaged with other customizations. Now the localizations have been enabled with the Commerce SDK, and with this new functionality, commerce localization features are delivered either as end-to-end sample solutions included in the Commerce SDK on GitHub, or included as out-of-the-box in the base commerce solution. You no longer need to enable commerce localization features by using extension configuration files. You also no longer have to rebuild the point of sale when enabling these features. Instead, you can enable the features from this commerce headquarters, feature management, commerce parameters page, functionality profiles, and more. So here are the deployment options with the Store Commerce app, in-app mode and the hybrid mode. During the installation of the Store Commerce, you can pass a parameter to select either the hybrid mode or in-app option. The default option is in-app deployment. We have a single base installer for both the in-app mode as well as the hybrid mode. For the in-app deployment option, the application content is locally deployed in the Store Commerce. Store Commerce then renders the application content from its local deployment. It doesn't connect to CPOS that is hosted in the CSU to get the application content. So you'll need to provide the retail server URL when you are going to install the Store Commerce app in the in-app mode. To update the application content for in-app mode, you can run the latest version of the Store Commerce installer. The application content won't be updated if you update the CSU. Therefore, you can manage the updates at individual registers. The in-app mode supports offline. During installation, pass the install offline command line switch to deploy the offline database. During offline, there is no connectivity. The application won't be able to connect to CSU or the commerce headquarters. In those cases, the app will use the locally deployed CRT. So we also support local hardware station in the in-app mode. Now in the hybrid mode, the Store Commerce is a shell that renders CPOS and connects to the headless commerce and commerce headquarters by using the CSU in online mode. In the hybrid mode, the Store Commerce app content is rendered from CPOS directly and is hosted in CSU. During the app launch, you will see that the Store Commerce app will ask for the CPOS URL instead of the retail server URL in the in-app mode. However, very important to note that the hybrid mode offline isn't supported. If you have offline scenarios, you need to work in the in-app mode. As I said earlier, there are separate installers for the hybrid and in-app topologies. The deployment options are determined by parameters that are passed during the installation. This makes it easy as you don't need to maintain two installers for in-app and hybrid mode. In the hybrid mode, to update store commerce, just update the CSU. Store commerce automatically receives the update, and because these updates are centrally managed in the CSU, all the devices are updated accordingly. The store commerce application shell still must be updated separately by using the installer. Hybrid app also supports the local hardware station. Store commerce mobile apps deliver all the capabilities and advantages of the store commerce app for Windows on phone and tablets. The store commerce mobile app can be installed directly, as I discussed earlier, from the Apple and Google app stores. In addition, the store commerce for iOS includes support for a dedicated hardware station, so that iOS device can communicate with the network, payment terminals, receipt printers, cash drawers, without requiring the deployment of a shared hardware station. The store commerce mobile apps use the same topology as the store commerce app for Windows when it's deployed in the hybrid mode. The shell application model enables store commerce app to support a dedicated hardware station for direct integration with a payment terminal, printer, cash drawer. You don't have to set up a shared hardware station to use hardware devices. To update a store commerce mobile app, just as in hybrid mode, update the CSU. The minimum Android version is 7.0 and the minimum iOS version is 15.0. So it's also important to note that the retail hybrid apps are deprecated. We recommend that you use store commerce for Android or iOS or store commerce for web for all new deployments. Now we will take a look at a few scenarios for the migration. Here is the first scenario for the migration. This is where the most amount of work will be for migrating from existing MPOS workload to the store commerce app. As noted in the slide, we request all existing customers using MPOS to migrate to the new store commerce app by October 2023. So the update is mandatory. All the new enhancements in the product will be on the Commerce SDK and the store commerce app. If you are an existing MPOS customer using offline functionality, you can choose to go to the store commerce in-app mode. The store commerce in-app mode provides you with a like-to-like replacement of the MPOS offline. So in the in-app mode, the components are deployed locally and it supports offline and local hardware station. If you are an existing customer using MPOS without offline, you can go with the in-app mode without enabling offline. So the offline is enabled in the store commerce app by passing the install offline command line switch during the installation. You can skip that and the offline components are not installed. Let's take a look at the second scenario for the migration. The retail hybrid app is a shell that was built by using Xamarin. Inside the shell is a web view controller that loads the CPOS, which is based on the commerce scale unit URL that is specified in the settings of the app. The store commerce app for Windows and the mobile platforms are the next generation of the POS application. The store commerce mobile apps retain full functional parity with the current retail hybrid apps. In addition, the store commerce for iOS includes support for dedicated hardware station. The current retail hybrid apps for mobile is deprecated. We recommend that you use store commerce for all new post deployments. Existing customers should plan to migrate from the retail hybrid app to the store commerce app by October 2023. The store commerce mobile apps also use the same topology as the store commerce app for Windows when it's deployed in the hybrid mode. To update a store commerce mobile app, just update the CSU. So all the new functionality and features will be automatically picked by the app. The shell needs to be serviced, and it is serviced through the App Store updates. When a minor version reaches GA, we will publish it to the app stores. We might also publish patches between minor version updates to release high priority bug fixes. Let's look at the third scenario of migration. This is for existing customers using CPOS. This migration is not mandatory and is optional. The CPOS application has been in the market for a while. It's browser-based, which supports the Microsoft Edge and the Google Chrome browsers. CPOS does not support offline and works only in the online mode. Store commerce and CPOS share the same application code because CPOS runs in the browser. The application isn't installed locally. Instead, the browser accesses the application code from the CPOS server. There can be customers using CPOS who want to move to the store commerce app in hybrid mode, as it comes with a dedicated hardware station. This way, customers can avoid the installation of the shared hardware station. This migration from CPOS or store commerce for web to store commerce hybrid mode is not mandatory, and you can choose to migrate if you don't like the shared hardware station and want to use the dedicated hardware station. Now, this is a comparison slide between store commerce app, in-app mode, hybrid mode, store commerce app for Android and iOS, and MPOS and CPOS, store commerce app for web. The operating environment is Windows for store commerce app, except for Android and iOS where it's mobile. The store commerce app requires Dynamics 365 Commerce, specifically the Commerce headquarters and the CSU components. Before a register can be activated on the store commerce mobile app, you must set up a device and register in the Commerce HQ. At the framework level, store commerce is a WPF Foundation shell application for Windows, and it uses the Edge Web View to control to render the CPOS application. To render the interface, Commerce uses the Chromium engine instead of the UWP app rendering framework. So the Chromium engine has better rendering performance than the native JavaScript UWP app in Windows. So the main difference between MPOS and store commerce is that the store commerce uses the Chromium engine to render the app. In the hybrid mode, the shell application renders the CPOS. In the store commerce app for Android and iOS also behaves like the hybrid mode where it pulls the information from the CSU. Then hardware station is used to connect to hardware peripherals. The support for local hardware station is not present in CPOS. It relies on the shared hardware station to talk to the peripherals. Offline mode is supported in the in-app mode, just like the way it worked in MPOS. Offline is not supported for store commerce app in the hybrid mode and store commerce app for web. As far as the ALM is concerned, the store commerce app runs on Windows devices and can be downloaded from the LCS. So if you go to the retail self-service packages section in the asset library, you can find that file. If you're not able to find that file in the asset library, you can even import the file from the shared asset library. So MPOS is self-serviced by using LCS and Commerce headquarters. It's packaged and installed by using the MPOS installer. CPOS is browser-based and is deployed in the CSU. and CPOS application is not deployed locally. The browser accesses the application and code from the CPOS server. CPOS can't directly access POS hardware or work in an offline state. So Commerce provides a wide range of deployment and topology options. We are revisiting the deployment considerations again for Store Commerce app. Therefore, customers can choose the components and configuration that best meet their business and technology requirements. So one aspect of the implementation that requires careful consideration is the choice of a platform and a form factor for Store Commerce. So the Commerce supports the following Store Commerce options: Store Commerce for Windows, iOS and Android, Cloud, POS, or the Store Commerce for Web. In all these cases, as discussed earlier, the Store Commerce shares the same application code. So this point is very important, and it's important for the following reasons. The UI is consistent, regardless of the platform or form factor. Most of the functional capabilities are the same, regardless of the platform or form factor. However, there are some important differences. These differences are noted also in this slide. In each store, the Store Commerce variations can be combined and can run concurrently. For example, for its main registers, a customer can use Store Commerce on computers that run Windows. However, the customer can supplement those registers with browser-based terminals or mobile devices. Customizations and extensions can easily be used across platforms and form factors. Because the core application code is shared, most customizations can be implemented one time instead of multiple times. Store Commerce for Windows supports offline mode. In offline mode, the Store Commerce can continue to process sales even if it's disconnected from the Commerce scale unit. It can then be synchronized with channel database when connectivity is restored. So the Store Commerce uses its own embedded instance of the CRT, and it temporarily uses its own local offline SQL Server database when offline. So while the devices are online, all Store Commerce clients in the store use the Commerce scale unit. The Commerce scale unit can be deployed either in the cloud or in the store in the self-hosted mode. Unless the connectivity for a given device is very dependable and resilient, or unless a certain amount of downtime is acceptable to the customer, we recommend one of the following options. Use Store Commerce in Windows and enable offline mode, or deploy an on-premise Commerce scale unit. For most reliable topology, customers can deploy a self-hosted CSU to reduce the dependency on internet connectivity or Azure availability. You can also deploy Store Commerce registers where offline mode is enabled if there is an issue with the local server or the network. The complexity of deployment and servicing requirements can vary for different flavors of Store Commerce, depending on the application and deployment choices. For example, for a cloud-hosted Store Commerce for web deployment, you don't have to install and update on every device. However, if you deploy Store Commerce on every register and enable offline mode, and you also deployed shared hardware station, you greatly increase the complexity of deployment and servicing. So when it comes to planning for the Commerce SDK migration, you can start by working on the estimate by looking at existing customizations and customization footprint. You can also use the tool that is demonstrated in the next tech talk of the series that will help developers to identify the objects that are required to that requires migration. So next to check is the ISV used to see if they are migrated to the Commerce SDK. Check the localization support for your market. Some of the localization code migration to Commerce SDK is still in progress. Get that visibility for your migration planning. So topology wise, by default, customers can keep the same topology without any change. Since Store Commerce app brings up additional options like hybrid, they can also be considered. With regard to testing, plan for testing post migration, full round of UAT with customization, ISVs, localizations by using the new Store Commerce app and with the real hardware peripherals. For the rollout, check the mass deployment options and prepare the automation scripts. There is a new tech talk available explaining the mass deployment options. You can check that out. We will cover more details on each of these considerations in the coming slides and in the next tech talks in the series. So this is a commonly asked question by customers. If you are a new customer, can you use Retail SDK? So going forward, new customers should go live with Commerce SDK. So if you should only consider Retail SDK if there is a known issue blocking your Commerce SDK or Store Commerce adoption. So all the customers must migrate by October 2023. We strongly recommend that you start migrating as soon as possible to avoid any unforeseen issues, delaying the migration past the end of support for the Retail SDK. So another question is on functional parity. Store Commerce has full functional parity with MPOS. With regards to the hardware parity between MPOS and Store Commerce app, the Store Commerce app does not support UWP peripherals that are point of service devices. Store Commerce has full functional parity with the CPOS. In addition, Store Commerce supports the dedicated hardware station. The Store Commerce mobile app also retains full functional parity with current retail hybrid apps. In addition, Store Commerce for iOS includes support for dedicated hardware station. So iOS devices can also communicate with the network payment terminals, receipt printers, cash drawers without using a shared hardware station. Here are some important roles that should be part of the Store Commerce migration project. Project manager for governance and project oversight, testing team, and the lead to test the Store Commerce application customizations scenarios. For example, customers may have many extensions that need to be migrated to Commerce SDK. Post migration of the extensions testing also should be done to ensure that extension code has been migrated correctly and is working as expected. Environment managers are required to apply the installers for Store Commerce app and extension installers. They should also work on maintaining the CSU and applying the necessary core and extension packages. They should also contribute to the environment management for testing and should participate in rollout planning and mass deployment. The development team should work on the extension solutions and should migrate the code to the Commerce SDK. Release management team can work on creating the releases, build pipelines, release pipelines for the extension installers. The above is a quick summary of some of the roles. For a few of these roles are often shared by the same individual in the implementation project. So here are the migration steps for the Commerce SDK. We recommend to migrate the scale unit first to the Commerce SDK. You will need to uninstall the previous packages of MPOS in your local development environment, hardware station, and if you have used cloud scale unit self-hosted as well. So migrate the extensions by using the Commerce SDK. Most of the code that was written by using the Retail SDK can be easily be migrated. You don't have to rewrite it. For example, the CRT extension can be updated by changing the project to .NET Standard 2.0 and updating the reference packages so that it's consumed from the public feed. The API extensions can be updated by using a new interface and removing the EDM model extender code because it's now automated in the backend. Then move the CSU to the CSU core. CSU core offers highly performant APIs. So to migrate your CSU to CSU core or to deploy a new instance of the CSU core, you can contact the support team for any help. You can validate that your extensions are compatible with the CSU core by running an extension test, and this can be done by running a health check, and you need to pass the test name as extensions. The next step to move the POS extension to Commerce SDK, create a new extension package solution, copy the source files to your extension package, update the manifest.json file, convert all references to the POS.UI SDK library. And if you're planning to use Knockout, update all reference to knockout.js so that you use a copy of the library that is included in your extension package instead of the global instance that is used in POS. Convert also all references to legacy classes, extension view controller base from custom view controller base. Most of the classes and the deprecations are already documented in docs. Post the migration of POS, create extension package for CSU. And CSU is self-hosted by using the new installer and the packaging framework. Then you can apply the CSU extension package in the CSU. You can also create the Store Commerce app headless installers. This can be installed in the device or register manually or using mass deployment. I will show how to generate these installers in the next tech talk. Here are the steps for the Store Commerce app migration. Before you start, make sure you close all the shifts, sign out of your POS devices, recall and void out any suspended transactions, make sure you are taking appropriate actions on any extension data tied to any of the data like shifts or transactional data. Make sure all the data sync jobs are completed, P jobs, data is synchronized with HQ before migration, including the offline data in the SQL offline database. So post the statements so that existing data is reflected appropriately in HQ. After all steps till 5 are completed, we are making the changes to switch the register to the Store Commerce app. For switching the register or device to the Store Commerce app, change the device type, download the Store Commerce base installer from LCS, install the Store Commerce app. The installer is an exe file, and in the Store Commerce app can be installed by running the exe file with the install command line switch. So you can also uninstall the Store Commerce app similarly by using the uninstall command. Once the Store Commerce core installation or the base installation is complete, you can run the extension installers or ISV installers to apply any extension code. After the extension installers are applied correctly, you need to activate them. With that said, we have items in the roadmap to allow mass activation and improving the uninstall or install steps of the migration. We are working on these roadmap items on priority to release them as soon as possible for you. If you are an ISV migrating to the Commerce SDK and Store Commerce app, there are changes in the way extension or ISV code or functionality is applied to the Dynamics 365 Commerce environment. First one is the ISV extension should be compatible with the CSU core, which means the extension should be built with the .NET Standard 2.0 as the target framework. The CSU core runtime is built by using the ASP.NET Core as well as the .NET Core. Therefore, extensions that were created by using the legacy .NET framework and retail SDK packages won't run in the CSU core. So you can validate your extensions by running an extension test. There are separate installers for base application and extensions now. So the CPOS SDK uses the new sealed installer framework to generate the installers. ISV solutions and extensions can be independently developed by consuming the packages that are available in the public feed. ISVs can create extension installers that can be applied on top of the base installer. So like multiple extension installers can be applied on top of the base installer. Customers and partners are now able to apply multiple extension installers, which can be ISV packages based on a solution or a feature or a functionality. So all the ISV code should be migrated to CPOS SDK. So the code based on retail SDK will not be supported and can't be applied to Dynamics 365 CPOS environments. So all the ISV must be ready for the customer migration by October 2023. So extension packages that are created by ISVs, partners, and customers for the CSU must be merged into a single package before they are deployed through LCS. So currently LCS doesn't support the deployment of multiple extension packages. So the last extension package that is deployed will overwrite the previous extension deployment. So extension package merging isn't required for on-premise CSU deployments. Extension packages can be independently installed on premises. So it is possible to merge the packages by generating a NuGet package for the ISV extensions. ISVs can also share the packages by using NuGet feeds. We will see a demo of this in the next tech talk of the current series. Lastly, it is now possible to sign the extension installer separately with signing certificates. So an ISV can sign the installers produced by them to ensure the installers are not tampered with, ensure file integrity and establish trust. So we will also see a demo of signing in the next tech talk of this series. Migration testing. Migrating to the new CPOS SDK requires a one-time code change to the existing customizations or extensions. So this will require testing. With user acceptance testing, you can verify that specific business scenarios work as expected post-migration. The testing should also include not only the customizations, but also end-to-end processes. The goal is to catch anything that doesn't work correctly before we go to the production environment. So also make sure you are using a build system that provides assurance and an audit trail of the exact changes that are in a specific build. Don't use installers or packages manually generated from dev machines. We also recommend to do performance testing post the migration to ensure channel performance. The rollout plan. So these are the options in terms of the rollout plan. We recommend existing large implementations to use the pilot stores migration approach. This means installing Store CPOS app on few pilot devices. Please note that MPOS needs to be uninstalled before the Store CPOS app can be installed. The big migration approach can be used with care on a new implementation and not recommended for existing large implementations. Okay, with that, we are into Q&A. Rob, are there any questions which we can take?
There have been several questions that have come up, 32 by my count. And there are also another 8 questions that have not yet been answered that I've been trying to keep up with. Let's go ahead and kind of answer some of those right now. I'm going to go ahead and publish all of the questions that have been submitted. These buttons work. And I'll just go ahead and read them off out loud and kind of answer them in the talk itself, so that everyone can benefit from it instead of me slowly typing out the answers. So the first question that I haven't answered yet is this. Using existing deployment CSUs, is it necessary to remove CSU packages from the CSUs that have retail SDK before deploying the Commerce SDK package? Srinath, you want to answer that?
So the first step in terms of the CSU migration should be to move the scale unit to the Commerce SDK. So any extension package you apply anyway overrides the previous extension package. So what you can do is you are able to first migrate to the CSU core. If your old CSU is not already on CSU core, you can migrate the changes to the CSU core. Then you can apply the new extension package, which has already been migrated to the Commerce SDK.
So a quick and short summary of that is deploying a new package automatically overwrites whatever's there. So there's no need to really remove the prior package. You just, when you have your, when you switch from Retail SDK to Commerce SDK, you just deploy the new Commerce SDK package and the CSU will do all the cleanup. All right, so the next question is, when you migrate from MPOS to Store Commerce and you have an offline database, is there anything special that you need to do about the DB structure before migrating?
So, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so so the steps have been explained in the presentation. I will repeat some of those. So if you have an offline database and if you have extensions applied as part of the offline database, you need to also move those extensions to the Store Commerce app. You need to install those extensions as seed installers, or they should also be migrating those channel database or the offline database schema changes, or maybe also into the new Commerce SDK. And they also need to be applied on the offline database.
All right. So the next question is, do we have a link to documentation on migrating Retail SDK CRT to the new SDK? And I'll answer this one. So we do have a little bit of documentation talking about the change in patterns and what has been deprecated within the Retail SDK. But there are a lot of patterns that are out there today that we don't have examples of how do you migrate from the Retail SDK pattern to the new Commerce SDK. We will, our Tech Talk number 3 focuses on a lot of these more coding specific questions, and we're going to go through a number of samples. We're not necessarily going to cover everything, because I imagine there's probably more examples than we have that we can cover in an hour. But we will go through the most common ones that we've seen to kind of help. And as our engineering team completes the localizations, they are then going to focus again on the samples to get better parity of Commerce SDK samples compared to what we had with the Retail SDK. Second to last question, actually, no, we've got more questions here. Let me go to, so the next question is, do we have any links or guidelines to merge ISV packages? Srinath, I'll let you cover that one.
So in the second Tech Talk, we are planning to show a demo of that scenario where we are using NuGet feeds to package the ISV solution. So watch out for the second tech talk, and we already have a published doc as well already, and that can also be referred to before we actually go through the second tech talk.
Okay, so there's another question, and I'll answer this one. So the question reads, are there any specific instructions for setting up a cloud-hosted environment that does not have a CSU? And I assume that this is a developer box when we're talking about a cloud-hosted environment. So we do have good documentation on how to set up and how to test using the point of sale. The links here are our homepage, our SDK home, will take you to that developer guide that can have you set up your development environment. So that should help you there. I will say there are some nuanced differences in between a cloud scale unit and a developer cloud hosted environment. So you won't get 100% parity between your dev box and the CSU, but for a lot of development and testing, it gets you close enough to really test and work on your extensions before releasing them out to a CSU.
I will add one thing there, Rob. So it is now possible to have a scale unit on your dev machine. So it's possible to have a self-hosted CSU or an IAS hosted, a local IAS hosted CSU. There is documentation in there is documentation already published, and there is also a sample, the scale unit sample we have published, which also has the documentation, the README file, like how you can kind of set up a kind of local IAS based comma scale unit in your dev machine.
All right, and so the last question is, Srinath, I'll let you answer this one. In the case where we want to do a soft deployment, is there a way to run store commerce and legacy MPOS within the same store using the same CSU?
So it is not possible to run MPOS and store commerce app on the same machine. So you have to first uninstall MPOS, then only you have to install the store commerce app. So there could be a side deployment where some machines have MPOS while some other machines have store commerce app.
We have a couple more questions that came in while we were answering those. We've got a couple minutes left. So one of the questions is, we use the term CSU core. Can we explain what is it and how do we get it?
So should I go ahead, Rob, or you want to answer that? Or
I'll answer this one. So CSU core is again a modern version of our cloud scale unit, and it is enabled by deploying the Commerce SDK version of extensions to the CSU. And it also, depending on the extensions and the files that you link, as long as you no longer link to any of the legacy .NET 4 libraries, we can get the benefit of basically the ASP.NET Core runtime, and so that's unofficially what we're calling the CSU core. And as Srinath mentioned, there is a lot of performance improvements over with that newer technology stack than switching over to then running on the old school .NET 4.6. So how do you get it is basically by just removing all of those legacy components by deploying the updated version. The CSU will auto detect the dependencies, and as soon as none of the legacy dependencies are there, it will switch over to the new stack, and you'll instantly get the benefit. The next question, but Srinath, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so the CSU core is also based on the ASP.NET Core and the .NET Core, and it's also based on the .NET Standard target framework. So if you have an ISV which is using the old framework, you cannot deploy that to the CSU. So you need to first migrate to the .NET Standard, post which only you can apply that ISV or extension to the CSU core. Yeah.
Okay, we are getting close to the end of time, but I want to answer, I believe, the last two questions. So the second to last question is there a way to quick test a store commerce extension? Srinath, do you want to answer that?
So quick test, maybe on your local dev machine. Yeah, you can just install it, and if you have the installer for that, you can install it on your dev machine and see how it works. That would be the quickest way to kind of see if a extension works.
Yeah. And so just to be clear, we now have an independent installer so that your extensions are separate from the point of sale. So all you would need to do, and the great thing about the Commerce SDK is you no longer need to have an entire VM. You can do development from your desktop. So you would need to first install the Store Commerce app on your laptop or your desktop. And then as you do your development, you can essentially publish those extensions to the folder. And that would give you basically that same testing capability that, from a quick compile, you can then relaunch the Store Commerce app to test out your extension. And so the last question is, are there any plans to include unit testing capabilities in the new Commerce SDK, like we have in X++ with the SysTest framework? And the answer here is yes and no. So today there are a lot of unit test things that you can do in .NET. However, from a UI perspective, we don't plan to add anything there. We're going to rely on our overall Dynamics 365 testing tools. So today that is RSAT, but you might not have heard that we are looking to replace RSAT with a more robust solution that works for all of the Dynamics 365 suite of applications. And so that is potentially going to be a more, from a UI perspective, a more automated tool that will give you better end-to-end testing. But from a unit test case, especially if you're talking about testing CRT, the .NET already has some existing testing tools and capabilities, so there isn't much need to add any additional work there. Srinath, do you have any comments or questions to add to that?
Yeah, so we don't have yeah, so maybe we need to create maybe a test project or something like that in the .NET at the moment. Yeah, we should be using RSAT kind of to test the functionality. The unit testing is more like at the code level. Yeah, we don't have anything, but that's certainly good feedback, and we can certainly discuss more on that. Yeah.
Rob, you are muted.
Oh, sorry about that. We are a little over time and at the end of our questions. I did want to ask the audience, was anyone curious about the answer? So Srinath, if you could go forward one slide, we actually do have the answer to today's puzzle. And basically the answer was Rob used all of his time running up the hill, that he was not going to meet his personal best, and so he's going to have to try again tomorrow. And with that, Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap up.
Thank you, Rob. I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We'd love to hear your feedback on today's session and hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you in advance for your participation. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be made available on the TechTalks Community Dynamics page within the coming weeks. You will also see a link in the chat to register for the other events in this series. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and to you, our audience, for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of the day ahead.